All right, we are live. Hopefully, there are people out there in our stream to say hello to us. And also, I do believe we're starting on time, which eat your heart out, Fred Serval.
Oh, fighting words.
It's always fighting words with Fred.
I love it. I
love Fred. I only fight with Fred because I adore him. If I don't like you, I don't engage with you at all. So.
Yeah, I always assume that if someone isn't picking on me, there's something wrong. Like the rapport isn't quite where it needs to be yet, right? Makes sense.
Indeed. But hello, everyone out there. Hopefully, we'll get some more people kind of streaming in the next few minutes. I don't think anybody expects streams to start on time. But Dan and I are here to talk about our top historical games of 2023. They don't have to have come out in 2023, but we have to have played and enjoyed them in 2023. You think that's fair?
I think it's fair. It's also impossible to verify, which makes it fun for us, right?
We could have just made up anything.
I'm just gonna pretend that I didn't know what Codenames was or something until this year, and that it is also, in fact, a historical game.
It's about spies. It's a code. It's definitely about the SOE during World War II.
Yeah, I never even thought of it as being like espionage, Cold War themed.
Why not? You can make anything historical if you want to.
Yeah, I think that's something we could definitely make happen in our rebranding of popular games to make them less popular.
Yes. By calling things historical, you automatically just decrease the cool factor.
Yeah.
Several notches.
That's what my nephews tell me when I introduce games.
So when I do not actually hide the fact that I have a YouTube channel for my students, but they never watch it because I tell them that it's about historical board games and they do not care from that moment. It's fantastic.
It's safe. You could
look.
Probably call them out. You could call individuals out who are known problems, source of displeasure, a behavioral handful, whatever. Classroom nuisance. Just be like, I can name names. No one will ever know. It's buried deep in the recesses of my historical board gaming channel.
Honestly, I'm pretty sure the biggest behavioral problem in my classroom is me. So, so it's okay. It's okay. Oh, man. All right. So do you just want to get down to business?
Sure, we can get down to business. I know that on time is the new abrasive. So I love
that suits us both.
They're going to be like, top 4? What's going on? I love that we're just going to like hit them where it hurts. It's great.
I just put it in Fred's Discord because
salt the wound.
Yes.
For those who are unaware, apparently there is a Rebel Fury playthrough today on Mosul. And we decided, independently of knowing this, to do our thing. And Liz was going to host a little top 5 games of 2023. So, of course, now we're going to just be playing Rebel Fury starting 3 minutes sooner than their playthrough does.
Yes, exactly.
We won't have Mark Herman, so we'll be playing it incorrectly. But I think that's okay. I think that's fine. As long as we start first.
We know that their playthrough hasn't started yet. So yes, so we did accidentally cross schedule with Fred from Homeludes. We do feel bad about it, but I'm also just gonna take this opportunity to razz him before we get down to business.
Yeah.
It's what friends do.
We do at the beginning, the middle, and then twice again at the end.
Double tap. Oh man! All right, so let's get down to business because I do want to talk about all these games. I know that you play cooler things than me. So who should go first? Do you want to go first as the guest?
I will go first as the guest, and then if any of these that I enter in my top 5 are not to your liking, you can simply veto them and just make me gently aware that they are in fact not one of the top 5 games and that you did not like. Voice your displeasure however you'd like. I think that'll
Yes,
be fun.
yes, yes. I can cancel you. Actually, I have a hat for cancellations.
I love it. So subtle. I love it. The subtlety of it is great. Not enough tricorn hats being worn. What
I
else?
agree. Let's bring
Yeah.
him back.
I mean, I won't be the one to do it, but I applaud the attempts on the various channels to bring the hats back. Every time I'm listening to your podcast, Liz, I'm assuming you're wearing a hat of some kind. I can't see it, but I know it's there.
Exactly.
So,
A Jedi spiritual hat. It's just there.
it's Force hat. Yes.
Yeah.
So my first pick for top 5 games from last year is actually, and I'm not going to have the boxes for all of them because I've loaned 2 of them out, which is hilarious. But
Ooh.
I do have Glorious Chance, Gina Willis, because what's more fun than fighting out the naval campaign of the War of 1812? If there's something, I don't know what it is.
I mean, apparently 4 other things. This is so
Stop that. Quit. So I find it fascinating that after ages of there being no games on this topic, then of course 2 came out within months of each other this
Of course.
year. Gina Willis's through Legion War Games, and then Ken Rappel's game 1812 War for the Great Lakes came out on Compass, which I have not tried yet, but has a beautiful map. I will get to everything eventually, so help me God. But what I love about Gina Willis's game, so this is her first solo design. She co-designed Skies Above Britain
Yes.
with Jeremy White for GMT, which also came out this year. But this design was actually in the pipeline with Legion before she started it. And I believe she actually had initially started this game as a kind of thought exercise for something to do with like miniatures. So it's pretty bizarre because I never think about miniatures at all when I'm playing this. So what's cool about it, it accentuates and emphasizes just the naval component of the War of 1812 in the Great Lakes, which is so weird because living on the Great Lakes, as I do, like I find it really bizarre to imagine campaigns being waged against the British there. It's very interesting because that is the entirety of the scope. So you might be responsible for transporting troops to and from a place, but the land battle is all abstracted away. You really don't have any responsibility to it. Your focus is purely on naval. You can play as either the Americans or the Brits. Both campaigns have their own constraints and they are uniquely weird, but the asymmetry doesn't really involve learning 2 sets of rules. You're basically just learning 1 set of rules. The game does have 2 rule books, but the 2 rule books are just for reference purposes. So that way, when you're looking up things, they don't always have to explain what it means to be British and what it means to be American, looking up rule 3.1 or whatever. It's really cool. It's like got a nice kind of unfolding story. And this will not be to everyone's taste, but one of the things I like is almost every game averages 1 big confrontation at some point with an enemy fleet. It's often not at a time of your choosing. It's not the most ideal timing for the campaign. So sometimes you kind of hit what you think is the climax of your solo session in the middle, sometimes a little bit at the beginning, and sometimes right at the very end. But that keeps the tension up pretty high because you never know when it's going to happen. I thought it was really a pretty impressive first design from anyone. I would never show anyone. There's a couple first designs, by the way, in my top 5 this year. I would never show anyone my first design. Never, ever, under any circumstances. So anytime someone publishes one of them and it turns out great, I'm like, God bless them. That's awesome.
Yeah, see, I'm lucky because my first design was just with David. So I knew it was fine. But I've also started making my own like strange little creations, and you know what though, I actually have enjoyed like allowing myself that vulnerability. Like I showed my weird Agrippina game to Cole Worley at PAX Unplugged, and it was actually a really good experience.
That's awesome.
It was cool. Like people are actually really nice, I think, to game designers are good to each other. So I would trust like another game design person that I knew was gonna like have something interesting to say with an early design, I think. But
Yeah, it can be a double-edged sword because sometimes they know they'll be designing, trying to help with a design like feature for your game,
yeah,
and you're like, please just tell me impressions. I'm only taking you impressions.
please stick to the kind of feedback I asked you for, positive only. Oh, so before my number 5, did you have any honorable mentions you want to slip in before we get moving up the list?
I I did have one that I think I'm gonna get out of the way right now, actually. So, Littoral Commander was one of my favorites for this
Really?
year, and it's kind of part of what I love about it is I have a soft spot for team-based war games. There aren't enough of them. I just want there to be more in general. But I really liked it, but I hesitated putting it on this list because modern warfare, hypothetical conflicts, things like that. I just don't think of those games as historical, even though they draw from recent conflicts in terms of platform systems and what is specifically being modeled in the games. So I kind of hesitated to put that in the historical space. But if it was like a top 5 war games for this year, I think our guy would have made it. But yeah, I thought it shows off like Sebastian's experience with design.
That's
And
awesome.
I have only played through 2 of the scenarios, and I'm getting my ass handed to me every time I play them. I have not sniffed a win in this game, and I may never, but I've enjoyed it enough to keep bringing it back to the table. So
That's awesome. You know what? I'm gonna allow that. I think that inspired by recent history is gonna should count. We'll
you're a
count it.
very benevolent and permissive ruler. I appreciate
Broad definitions.
it.
All right, so I actually, before I get into my number 5, I had 2 honorable mentions.
Okay.
One, because it's not out yet, is Molly House, which I'm really looking forward to playing more. I can't wait to try Ricky's solo version of it, but I was just so pleased with the plays that I had of it this year, because it's such a cool integration of theme and mechanism, and I thought that the way that they handled informants it actually turned out really good. Like, I know that through the
Hmm.
game's development, there was a lot of kind of difficulties related to that. I think it's come out well. But just the whole vibe of that game is on point from what I can see. And so I'm really excited to play a game that like feels like a tough competitive board game, but it's also about parties. Having the best secret parties in gay speakeasies. I'm here for this. I think it's gonna be
Yeah,
a really cool like thing to try with more people once it's in wider circulation.
I got to try it only once in this latest iteration at SD HistCon, and I love that kind of a continuum of joy and guilt, how it
Yes.
sort of frames victory and standing for the players. And I also love that there was a lot of incentive for trying to facilitate other joy instead of it just being like sort of a always being a selfish kind of uh, typical competitive kind of game mechanic. Because if you don't throw some joy the way of your compatriots, it just incentivizes bad behavior, and it could spell doom for the Molly House. And I thought that that was a really clever wrinkle. But yeah, that informants mechanic is really nice. That was
Yeah.
really good.
I was really happy with it. So just by virtue of how often I've been playing it lately, I can't not mention Votes for Women because I've played it like I've got 3 games of Votes for Women going on right now, and I've played like 6 or 7 in the past, like since it came out on Rally the Troops. I did a stream of it because I was gonna do a stream. Now I can't stop. I've been playing the crap out of Votes for Women. And what's really bad is I've gotten pretty good at playing the opposition, so I'm like, yeah, I can't wait to get on here and crush my right to vote again. Like, oh no.
You and Kevin are just despicable people,
It's
bodying folks
bad.
on Rally the Troops, suppressing the movement. It's a shame. It's really a shame. I don't know.
Games are about exploring that other part of yourself. But yeah, why don't you tell your Rally the Truth story of this week since we were talking about it before the stream?
Oh, well, I went from not having gotten to try it yet, which is kind of ridiculous because I've been at numerous cons where Tori was there demoing that game. I don't know what kind of lazy putz I am that I still couldn't make that happen. But so I went from not having played it at all, despite having a copy, to then playing it 3 times, probably in the first 2 days that it was up on Rally the Troops. And I have kind of an issue with having games available on my computer because it kind of gets in the way of my work and design and all other stuff I need to do. So I'm very bad at having the discipline to put them away. So I played 3 quick games in short order, and then I was like, all right, I need to take a Rally the Troops break, and I need to like not have that. I was lamenting to Liz about my Magic the Gathering problem from a year ago, and I can't be on Arena ever again. Like I'm never going to get anything done. Games got to come out. We got people. We got things to do, podcasts to edit. There's like stuff that's got to come out. So it's bad. It's real bad.
It's bad. But my actual number 5 was played online because I finally got in my Grail game this year of like finding people to play it with me, finding people to teach me. I can't wait to do it again. I've mentioned it on my multiplayer one too, my video on this channel, which is Republic of Rome. I had dreamed of playing it. And, I know it's new to me right here in 2023. The thing's old as dirt by game standards, but it was so good. It was such a messed up experience of like wanting to preserve the Republic, but also hating that somebody else is going to get credit from the people for being the general at the battle. So, like, we were literally calculating how to give people just enough legions so they could probably win the war, but maybe they would die. And, like, having to run that through like the Senate, getting jealous when other people were given offices and like arguing that it was your turn to get an office. You have to actually argue that out in this game. And so it'd be like, no, it's my turn to be censored this year. This person's been censored this many times. It's like, no, but your prestige, your number is getting too high. We can't let you get all the glory, and it just becomes such a mess. It's such a it's one of those games that as a game, I'm not actually sure that any individual thing you're doing is any fun. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, I'm going to get some income, and then I'm going to argue with everybody, and then we're going to do some math, and then we're going to roll some dice. But it's the human baseness that it brings out that, like, is just so... There's something that's so pleasing about it. Also, Cartago Delinda Est is absolutely correct, Eric. But it just really brought things out of me that games normally don't, because I'm normally a solo gamer. And I realized like what a monster I really can be from playing Republic of Rome. And also how Roman it really felt, like from reading about the Republic starting to crumble and like what people were saying about each other, the kind of fights they had. The game just really captured the nasty, ambitious mess of it all. And I would play it again right now. It was great.
It's an interesting kind of touchstone for a lot of designers, right? And I think that it's also one of those games, sort of like Diplomacy, in that how much of the game is just situated outside of the game.
Yeah.
Like it's in the vicinity, but it doesn't quite feel raw and mechanical in the way that some other plays are. And this is something I think about a lot when playing people's cooperative designs, is like how much we're negotiating with each other, how heads up it is, and like how much we actually interact and talk versus how much of the game is just, my friend yelling at me to do X because they're quarterbacking and I'm so useless at reading the board situation.
So this didn't make my list, maybe it made yours, but we've got a commenter saying that Mr. President is his favorite recent history game.
Yeah, it didn't make mine. I actually think that it's kind of an interesting case of a game that's super complex and expensive and really difficult to table, because it's both very, very long and solitaire. And I don't want to get canceled by Liz, which is a fear that many of us live with every day. But I don't really play solitaire games that are quite that lengthy in general, because I can't have something set up on my table for that long.
For me,
Meals
Mr.
are
President,
eaten there, Liz.
I need what? No one eats when they have games. I'd like to play some more Mr. President before I make a judgment on how good I think it is, but I will say it almost hurt me to play it because it was so nostalgic in a way. Like, it made
Hmm.
me think of when I had more faith in our presidency and America's role in the world. And so, like, I enjoyed it, but it was also like, wow, I remember when I used to watch the news and feel more like this as opposed to just like despair.
Hmm.
So I think it might be like too recent for me. Like, I don't think my heart can
Too
take
soon.
too soon.
I mean, what is it? It's 2020, right?
It's
That's the period
2020,
code?
yeah.
Yeah.
And but like, I was voting. I graduated high school in 2004. I cast my first vote when I in a presidential election when I was in college. I followed all that stuff avidly for a long time. And so like it's weird because it's like playing when my political activity started in my life, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. So it's kind of it's a really interesting experience to play it because, of course it cuts out right before COVID.
Right. Well, I mean, also, I think with such a long design process, I don't remember the first GMT, like what year the first GMT weekend at the warehouse I went to was,
Yeah.
but I know that game had an update. There was like a design update about it, and it had to be when I was like the first year I was like probably taking No Motherland Without to publishers. So
Oh
just
man.
like to think that it's been kind of in the pipeline somewhere in that way, it's just it has to wrap up sometime. You know what I mean? If the design process lasts longer than FDR's presidency, that's just too long, I think, for me. It would be for me. It would drive me nuts to have a game that take much longer than that. So I totally understand.
Oh man. So what's your number 4?
My number 4, I'm gonna change. I'm swapping 2 numbers. Oh my
I
god.
I do that all the time. I've like done it like already twice this video. Go for it.
Ha! I do feel a little weird because it's another war game, and it just shipped like
Ooh.
in the past like month. So Downfall, which is John Butterfield and Chad Jensen. Chad Jensen passed before he finished this game. John Butterfield kind of took up the mantle and co-designed the game.
Yeah.
And I think I'm a little hazy on exactly who the developer was for that game or how much development. I think it was a bit of a group effort, probably with Kai Jensen and John
Yeah.
Butterfield to kind of cobble together. It's really so. One of my favorite things about John Butterfield games and Chad Jensen games is that how it inserts friction into places that most war games let you have a lot of control. And so I kind of like when, say, an event will just sort of screw up your plans because you didn't plan for it. And it's sort of conversed to like how when you're playing a card driven game, sometimes you have this sense of like, I can make the event happen before I play the event or after. Like there's like a little bit of added flexibility that they just never give to you. And I
Hmm.
love that in Combat Commander when I'm just minding my own business, trying to pick somebody up across the battlefield, like, you know what I mean? Like go run and reinforce the position, and then I just get shot by a sniper because of some dumb card that popped at the exact wrong time. And I just love that. I just love being screwed by the system like repeatedly. And that is lovely. And I think enemy action has that same thing when you're trying to like hit your opponent. I think that kind of team up is pretty badass. This is like a really interesting collaboration, and is a fantastic idea. For those who don't know, in Downfall, one player plays the Western allies in their Western front, as well as OKH, which is half of the axis facing the East front, and then the other player plays the East front and OKW, which is the half of the axis facing the West. So we get to kind of like split the unpleasant task of having to manage the Nazi factions while simultaneously getting to push with the fronts. It does portray it as though it feels pretty fragile. It's going to collapse at some point. Somebody's going to get in there, and it's just basically a race to see who's going to get in there. So no matter what, you get to see the collapse the Axis, which is fantastic. I actually managed to play this twice. First play was a little bit abbreviated, was our kind of get our feet wet and learn the system. And the second play was more of a now we know what we're doing and getting to immerse ourselves in it. But I'm really impressed with it, and I'm very excited to have more time with it next year.
Awesome. Now I'm curious. How dare you? No kidding. That's why I have you on here, because you'll mention stuff that I won't have played. I'll be really excited. All right. So you definitely played my number 4 though, because I really loved The Gods Will Have Blood. I really did. So
Yay.
y'all, Dan made a weird boutique game this year. He only made like 200 copies. I set an alarm so I could make sure that I backed it on GameFound on time because I was afraid I wouldn't get a copy. But The Gods Will Have Blood is, I mean, it's kind of a literary game too, I guess, in the sense that it's inspired by a novel called The Gods Will Have Blood. But I'm going to call it historical because the novel also is set in that period. Yeah. It's like roughly
Yeah.
like,
Historical fiction is kind of that shady
yeah.
spot.
But we're going to go with it, I think, because I think what you captured in the game was really cool. So for those of you who have not played it, it is a game about kind of running show trials during the French Revolution. And you've done well. You're like on the little tribunal, but you're trying to maintain your status within the revolution. And you're trying to maintain the legitimacy of the court. And at the same time, there are people who are going to like go up for execution that you really don't want to die. So like a friend, a lover, like people that you just really don't want to see die. And so you are trying not to lose your soul by killing people that you want to kill. You also don't have full control over what's happening because you get to have some decision in the process, but you're also part of a court. And so the more people die, the more momentum goes into the bag. And so you get like kind of into killing people as a group and like you can't stop. And I thought that was just a really interesting premise. Dan, do you have anything to add? I mean, it's your game.
I have a question. What
Yeah.
kind of magistrate were you, Liz? Were you lenient?
I was
Did you
troubled.
show a lot of mercy?
I had a hard time because it was like I would try to be mean a couple times and then start trying to show mercy before it was too late, but sometimes it still was. It's like okay, I'm gonna kill. Okay, let me pump the brakes. Kill. Oh, pump the brakes again. Gotta stop. Let's show some self-control, people. But I really liked that you could kind of get swept away with what was going on. And so it was partially about your decisions, partially it was out of your hands. But I think that's how it would feel. I feel like it really created like the sort of chaos of being part of something like that I thought was just an interesting design. And I also liked how just small it is. It says a lot with like not a lot of words. And like if it was a piece of writing, it'd be short and punchy.
Well, thank you for that. I do think if you have a game that has somewhat reduced decision space, you can kind of ruminate more on the other things it's doing, which I know that some of us like very meaty, puzzly things, but I think that's like a time and place. I don't know that you really want to spend 2 hours overseeing the condemnation of all these people, right? Like, I think it'd be a little bit grueling, but
I mean, if I got to look at people's trial stuff in detail and then condemn them, I feel like that would feel really good. But but only if there's no danger to me as the judge, you know? It has no
oh, I see how it is. Okay, then.
I'm a role model. But
no,
it was good work. I'm the only thing that I'm sad about with that one is that there's too much cursive on the cards and that it's not going to get a bigger print run, or maybe it will one day. I don't know where you're at with that, but
yeah, I don't know. I haven't decided yet. I'm gonna wait and see.
I dug it. I also do dig like a little boutique project. It's hipstery in all the best ways.
You treat it like a zine almost. I don't know. I've liked a lot of games like that. You know, I remember I was really inspired, I gotta say, when Matilda's Turncoats came out.
Yeah.
And I got my copy of that initially. Everything about the presentation of that made it mean more to me than my cool matte finish boxes that were all mass produced and then sent from China to me. I mean, as various Kickstarters fulfilled. I loved the feel and look of Turncoats. And it really did kind of nudge me a bit more and like maybe putting a little extra effort. And also, it's an opportunity to be political about how you're making a game instead of just
Right.
being political in the statement a game makes, like trying to find vendors that could do things in a more eco-conscious way, and then also trying to get as much of it fulfilled here in the States and kind of assembled here as possible. So
Yeah.
no, it was a cool opportunity. Am I up? I'm up, aren't I?
You are up. What's your number 3?
My number 3 is Endurance. I do not have the box, but this is where I would hold it. It's Amabel Holland's Endurance, about the Shackleton expedition, which
Yes.
began in 1914 and ran a little long. It's
Overstayed
my
just a little
feel
bit.
bad game of the year. I love feeling bad playing that game, but where to start? It's so interesting. So I think it has two really fascinating design arguments it's making. The one that I was actually most interested in is about when we model history in a game, where how do we want to incorporate it? Do we want the historical outcome to be the outcome that happens the most often when playing? Or in the case of Shackleton's expedition, do we treat it like this miracle Hail Mary hole in one type shot that is so unbelievable to try to even like reproduce and like replicate, that
Yeah.
the challenge is kind of about creating a model that can facilitate the historical outcome, but it won't produce it most of the time. And I thought that the way the game kind of presented its kind of thesis, or one of its two theses, was that if a model allows for the historical outcome to happen, that's kind of what we're looking for in a game. If we're playing like some weird World War II game and Poland cannot be invaded for whatever reason, it's just impossible to invade Poland. You'd be like, what's going on here? Like, what's happening? So I think that it's really impressive in that regard. And then the other aspect of it that I found interesting was the unwillingness to define victory conditions.
Hmm.
And I think that's because, MBL has like design notes laying out why that is. But for my impression when I was playing it was that we already are used to kind of creating our own victory conditions in like a, say, role-playing game atmosphere. And to me, this was a little bit more akin to like a tabletop role-playing experience probably than a board game, because I know what kind of survival I'm aiming for, which is everybody makes it out okay. I know that if I fell short of that, while everything else is like a sadder version of that, I there's not acceptable loss, but there's still like the kind of ending that you could be mostly satisfied with. And I think that that was an interesting choice. But it was a very unique game. It was a very Amabel game, and what a it was just like an interesting experience because I played it and I did poorly. And I can see someone being like, wow, this is a very tough topic. I felt like I was kind of put through the emotional ringer playing it. But at the same time, a couple weeks afterward, I'm still thinking about the game a fair amount.
Yeah.
And I played it, I think, this summer for the first time. And I haven't picked it up since then, but I've been thinking about it sporadically in the months that followed. And to me, that's what I love about a good game, is just how much I mentally revisit it, even when
Yeah.
it's very far away.
Nice. Nice. So we'll get back to endurance in a moment. But for now, my number 3 is Land in Freedom by Alex Knight. Because solo, it's fine. But multiplayer, I mean, I mentioned this in another video recently, but my God. I again, we mentioned kind of with Republic of Rome, how we kind of have games bring things out of us. I think what I liked the best about Land and Freedom was that it kind of got me to a place of extreme selfishness and frustration with the selfishness of others in a way that few games really ever do. Like, I normally expect to be screwed over in a game, or like, people do mean stuff. Like, at PAX Unplugged, I had to switch out in a game of Weimar with somebody else who was going to take over for me because I had to be somewhere. But I had an extremely irritating card to play, and I literally waited. Like, I waited until after everybody had just gotten back from a bathroom break to play the card because I just had to be that much of a little asshole. And I couldn't help it. And so, like, I'm used to people being mean when we're playing games, but there's something about Land and Freedom it just makes it so much extra frustrating because, like, we're all fighting fascists together. We're supposed to do this together. And look at you betrayed me. Or, you're so selfish, and that's why we all lost. Or, like, I gave so much, and now you're leading the Republic. What is this BS? This is terrible. And so the fact that the game kind of really brings out true emotional response as opposed to just like, I'm playing a game and it was competitive, like, good move, buddy. I
Yeah.
think that's what makes it special. Like, normally, I play multiplayer games. Playing solo, I like to think a lot about emotional experiences of games, and I think I've really started to warm, especially to multiplayer games that kind of cause something really raw to happen during
Hmm.
gameplay, if that makes sense.
No,
Also,
absolutely.
Brant wants to say, you look like you knew I'd be a camera, and I look like I forgot. Brant's just jealous that he doesn't look like either of us.
You have like yours is more like the behind the scenes, like
Yeah,
commentary with the director type of vibe. Mine is like the press photo taken alongside railroad tracks. Looks weird. Like, what was he posing for? What's going on? Yeah.
you always look cool. You've always got to carry it off. I just got through my first day of school with students, and I'm just glad I'm alive.
You
So
did it.
we're just gonna go.
You did it, Liz.
But yeah, I mean, I really want games to do something to me, if that makes sense. And
Yeah.
so Land and Freedom really did. So for those of you who've not played Land and Freedom, it's available from Blue Panther. Alex Knight is the designer. It was his first game. Like, speaking of great first games, Jesus Christ.
Hmm.
Um, but it's a semi-cooperative game where you're all different factions in Spain. You are fighting fascists, and you're also trying to make sure that your version of government is the one that, like, emerges at the end of the war. And so you have to keep fascism under control, but you're also trying to do things that are going to add your own influence to a bag that you're pulling from to see who ends up with the most, swagger at the end of the game, if you make it at all. But Dan, I'm assuming you've played it.
Of course, I've played it. It's actually number 2 on my list.
Oh, perfect. Because
Which
Endurance is my number 2, so we'll just.
Boom! Oh man.
Oh man.
So we didn't even know. We didn't even know we were on the same
No,
wavelength.
we really didn't.
It
Yeah.
came together like right near the end. Yeah. Hey, I think it's great. I love and hate the Bag of Glory a lot. It does everything it's supposed to do. I think Alex definitely sidesteps some issues that you typically run into in a 3-player game.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think is there's a lot of things. I love the way the iconography on the cards for each of the individual faction decks can be played to a tableau. I thought that tableau play was really clever and neat, and kind of crunchy in a way that I hadn't really seen very much before. And I love how winning the initiative helps you seed one of your, we'll call them swagger points, Liz. I like that a lot. Swagger points into the Bag of Glory. I mean, will the moderates have more swagger than the communists? Find out after this.
Probably almost never. Like, do moderates ever really
No, they're
have mojo? I mean,
it's a little tough, right? Because they've got 2 tracks to tug on, but cost-wise, it's about the same, right? But I think that I love that the initiative gets you to seed the bag, but then when you act first, you sort of are begrudgingly forced into the position of being the bulwark against, the oncoming kind of fascist hordes. And so you usually have to take care of whatever the test is. And then the next person will half do that, maybe. And then they'll half screw you over a little bit. And whoever's last will just screw everyone over a lot.
Yeah.
And hopefully snag initiative so the next turn they can pay it forward and be the bulwark and do all the grown-up stuff that they kind of recuse themselves from in the previous round. So I think that's like a really great system. I thought that was a really impressive first design. I don't think it's like a problem, but it is a very fast playing game. It's like a 90-minute, 2-hour experience. It's super tight. The table talk is always great. People wishing death on their compatriots if they don't go get them a beer and whatnot is like kind of par for the course there, right?
Oh yeah. I'm still mad at David Thompson. Meanest, most selfish communist in the world.
Hold on to your hate, Liz. Hold on to your hate.
I just let it flow through me. No.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I think that my one thing that I've noticed playing that game is that any kind of flavor text for events or for personality cards, it's always there for whatever players choose to engage with it. But in that game, I feel like there's very little reading text on cards. It's mostly iconography, but it does drive home the theme of infighting being like what is imperiling this Republican movement, which is already in dire straits to begin with.
Yeah.
So I think that's what comes across. And for being the only Spanish Civil War game I'm aware of that models that factional infighting instead of portraying the Civil War as just a two-party head-to-head war game.
Right.
I found that really fascinating and very cool. So yeah, very impressive. Good job, Alex.
Yeah, good job,
Good job
Alex.
to all of our Alexes that are here. I don't know what Alexes are on here, but I assume there's always like 2 or 3 Alexes hanging out. So
yeah, all the Alexes that are here or will be here, we love you. So my number 2 was endurance for a lot of the reasons you stated. You basically summed it up really well. But MML's games just get me. Like I love how raw she's willing to be with her games. I just feel like it really is something cool. And I think endurance in particular is special for her because she's talked a lot about how she couldn't finish the game before her transition. And then afterwards, like it was like her own survival story, like mirrors the survival story of actual Shackleton expedition. And so like trying to evoke that miracle, I think it's such an interesting mirror commentary, right, on a personal experience and a historical event. But I also I don't know, the way that she brought in things like entertainment and like try to keep your spirits up, I just thought were particularly good in that game. And I love the willingness to experiment with no win condition. I've been pretty interested in That Others May Live. I've been like starting to play that, getting ready to review it. And again, it's one of those where it's not so much win or lose. It's like, can you live with the fact that you couldn't save somebody? And I feel like there's something to that. That's Hollandspiel is really like kind of hitting a pulse point for me right now.
You recently played Heading Forward, didn't you?
I did. That was really interesting. It was frustrating. Like once you get good at the game, I think I mentioned in my review, it's almost like as you get better at the game, you lose the effect of the game.
I think that's true because you get immersed a little bit more in the kind of the mechanisms and the system and kind of the proceedings. So it's sort of like then you're just trying to solve the puzzle more than you're getting immersed in like kind of thematic play.
Right.
Which is a little weird. It's like, and I think this is by the way common in a lot of what could be very cool thematic solitaire games sometimes, where it's sort of like they hand you a slinky and then shortly after they straighten it. It's like, I don't know what to do with this weird wire. I know when I had it at first, it was very cool and fun. And now I've just turned it into something kind of goofy. My bad.
Okay, so before we go to number 1, I've been saving this question. So Severio from the chat wanted to know just about The Gods Will Have Blood. How did it feel to control all aspects of production? So we'll just have a quick interlude to get his question answered, and we'll move on, I think.
I highly recommend it if you can pull it off. It's pretty excellent. I had the opportunity to kind of like try a bunch of different vendors out that produce different components. And then nobody could do everything I wanted the exact way or at the exact price point that I wanted to keep everything manageable and keep costs from getting out of control. But I did think that being able to pick the best of each thing and then put it all in the box felt great. If you ever had like a game go out, let's say a sticker sheet got cut weird, and then you heard about it for like the next 6 months of your life, or if you ever had a publisher and they produced a counter sheet that's the exact same color as your board, so it blends in as if it fell fell into the abyss. It's really, I highly recommend it. Definitely worth trying.
Nice. And then just one more thing. So Brant from Armchair Dragoons has mentioned that we should look up Death Can Wait from a U.S. Army Commanded General Staff College. It's like a game. Somebody did it for their master's thesis. And it's about how to run a field hospital and deal with the casualties as they're coming in.
Oh.
Ooh.
I would be very interested in trying something like that. That sounds
I would
really
try that.
cool.
It sounds brutal, but I would try it. Like, just because it hurts doesn't mean I'm not going to be interested in trying it. So, yeah. So, out of curiosity, what's your number one? Yeah,
Sure.
moment of truth.
Moment of truth. From Nuts Publishing. Got a lot of deeper cuts. The publishers of the Illinois. It's We're Coming Nineveh. It's the Battle for Mosul, 2017, between Iraqi forces and Daesh, ISIS forces. Designed by, as far as I can tell, two designers that had never produced a commercial game before. And then I think it was developed by Brian Train and Rex Brennan. So that's pretty good gig if you can get your game developed by a couple pros like that.
Yeah.
It's a block game, but I still like it. Is that the way to say it? Stuart's
You're
not here,
allowed.
so he won't be.
Allow
it. It's interesting because I think what really drew me to it was it's got some similar aspects to Downfall in that I feel like it inserts friction in places that wargamers are not used to seeing it, and it models a bit of how the population of a place is incorporated into a conflict. And even though they don't have representation on the board, they're represented in this event deck along with collateral damage and aspects like that. So this event deck, Liz, has like numbers on the top of each card. Every time in combat that number is rolled, you interrupt the action of what's going on, and then you resolve the event immediately. And it's just like, by the first, I would say like 30 minutes into the first game, it's just the size of disgust on both sides of the table every time this thing popped, because we had no idea who was going to impact. We just knew everything in the deck is like some kind of bad thing, some sort of like horrible choice. Love that about it. That's my bread and butter, feeling bad all the time. And then it has an interesting measure for victory where you're looking at resolving the siege on Mosul through there's like 3 values that we're tracking. It's casualties, collateral damage, and then time. How long does it take for Iraqi forces to secure Mosul again? And a high score is good for ISIS, and a low score is good for the Iraqi forces. But everybody's got a objective card for their side that they play in secret at the start of the game. And whatever they emphasize of those 3 tracks, that value will be doubled at the end of the game for the scoring. And if both sides pick the same thing, it will be tripled when we total up the scores. So sometimes you think you're being really slick because you've got a good plan to minimize collateral damage. Things go kind of sour and they go the other way. And then it turns out both you and your opponents prioritize collateral damage, and there's a whole lot of it. Just like, what an amazing game. Love it. So it was very cool. I liked it a lot. And it kind of gave me some ideas of how something I wanted to see in like some more war games about representing civilian populations and kind of non-combatant folks. Yeah. And I had a talk with Natalia like a few weeks ago for my podcast about how we model like that stuff. And she was bringing up like all these great kind of professional war games that they'd played where there'd be things like where you couldn't actually have your forces in supply if you didn't have a sympathetic populace surrounding you or near you. It was sort of like almost like borderline partisan activity that would just basically be kind of undercutting your efforts. And so it got me thinking a little bit more about how that gets modeled in games and wanting to see that like a little bit more. So that's my number one.
Nice. Yeah, my number one is It's I would say it's actually probably the most commercial game on the list, but I just really liked it. It's not about bulges. I'm sorry. We we have to get the Battle of the Bulge there, but it is World War II. And I picked it because I immediately got like design envy when I played it, and then I played it a bunch of times. And it was Halls of Hegra.
Okay.
Halls of Hegra from Tompet Games. And it is basically it's a tower defense like siege game. It's solitaire only, and it mixes worker placement and bag building like with that tower defense. So you're playing some Norwegians who are trying to fend off some early World War II German attacks, and you have basically little worker placement pieces that you're putting in little slots around different actions on the board that you want to take. And one thing that's so frustrating is it's like there's so many actions that look good, but you're just never going to have enough people to take them all. So it's like, oh, I could do this. Oh wait, no, I can't. I can do like two things. Damn it. And then of course, as you go, people get demoralized. People get they get hurt. It takes forever to get them out of the infirmary. There's a recovery period, so you can have a big chunky turn, but then you used everybody and you're like, oh, do I want to spend supplies to like refresh more people right now? Or do I want to wait it out? And then meanwhile, like the attacks from the Germans are like gaining in intensity during this time, and they're damaging all your stuff. And so I compared it to Home Alone in my review, because it's like you make your plan and like you try to shore everything up. You're like, okay, I can go here, I can do this, I can prepare this, I can remove this potential damage to me. I can get all these people, I can get ready. So you feel like that preparatory kind of segment of the game, which I enjoy because it feels like I'm hunkering down. Like I'm one of those people in a video game too, where I'll just kind of watch guard movements or whatever forever. I like to make a plan. It just feels like there's something about that I particularly enjoy. So you have a couple turns to plan, and then like it's on, and the Germans start to show up, and so you have to balance, like, am I prepping correctly? Am I responding well in the moment? Am I aware of what could happen? And it's really hard to win the game. I will say that if you get horrible draws early in the game and you don't get enough people in with you, you're not going to win the game. But I love just the act of doing it. Like, I love the bag building aspect. There's a couple different bags that things come out of. You could put more misses in the hit bag, so it makes it more likely you're not going to get damaged. The actual workers coming out of the worker bag are like really interesting. Like, you're just constantly, like, I just really found it an engaging experience. And it's one that I've played a bunch of times. I am thinking about it. I'm like, oh, maybe I'll play that again tonight. And so it's really my number one, in the sense that, like, it's what I want to sit around and play of an evening. And like, there's just no disputing the appeal of something like that. It's a really, really enjoyable take on tower defense. And like, I like tower defense games in general. And because this one was different and special, therefore I was like super into it. So Brant wants to say, too many options for resources sounds just like 80% of Ryan Lockett's games. I'm not going to comment on that. But I really liked Halls of Hegra. It's really, really good. I thought it was such a smart implementation of bag pull plus tower defense.
Would you characterize this year's designs, or releases rather, as being a great year to reach into a bag? Or I'm just kind of curious if you had a little zippy.
Not as good as next year, because Night Witches is coming with a great pair of bags for you to reach into. No, I am forever. I actually really like bag pull. I'm really glad that it's a mechanism that's hot right now, because I really enjoy it. I think it's I think it's a really good way to deal with randomization and chance without totally having it be about dice. And also, I mean, I feel like I like dice, but I do feel like a lot of people are more interested in probability these days. That doesn't cut, like, the thing about a bag, right, is that you know that your results are in there, as opposed to, like, you could just roll bad the whole night. And so I like bag pull because I feel a greater sense of responsibility and a greater sense of like failure as opposed to, well, the dice just screwed me. It's like you know that what you need is in that bag.
Yeah.
And you just didn't get it. Like there's a certain, I feel like it's different. We just arrived for the spicy dice chat. I don't know. I think the bag talk might be a little more spicy.
It depends on how you define spicy, I suppose. So, I can, I definitely find it interesting how many designs I play every year that still are very heavily reliant on dice, despite the fact that I've really haven't ever been super enthusiastic about playing dice heavy games. But I also understand that, like, like if you play like a lot of war games, if you came up playing a lot of D&D and like tabletop role playing games, dice are usually just sort of part of it. So that's why I've been like really intrigued by like a lot of the tarot driven like solo RPGs and like all these different mechanics for resolving
Yeah.
option, kind of resolving like actions, and also like seeing too how the kind of quandary that you run into when you're playing a game where you're drawing a card from a deck to resolve an action, or you're drawing from a bag. This idea of like drawing without replacement, like how that changes the odds, just seems a little bit more meaty to me and like fun, because it's constantly screwing with my math, which is already poor to begin with. But now I'm being pushed to its limit. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, and like David and I leaned into that hard for Night Witches, as people will hopefully discover next year. But yeah, I really like that awareness of what's in the bag, awareness of what you've pulled, having to keep recalculating the odds. I really enjoy that. I actually do enjoy randomization through decks as well. I like knowing that there are good and bad things in there and just wondering which I'm going to pull. And then it's like, well, I've had my good luck, so now what's going to go wrong? Or I've had a string of bad luck. I know something good will happen to me eventually. Oh, crap, I just drew the shuffle card.
right. Cleaned it up. It's just
Oops.
back to square one.
Indeed. Brant wants to know if we played Zermatt. I have not.
I have. It is excellent, and I am very excited for the next game, Cedar City, from Tim Densham. I'm not sure when that's coming out. I think it was delayed a little bit, but fingers crossed for Q1 2024. Excellent. I recommend, by the way, anyone check out Zermatt. It's a great little 2-player game. Plays very brisk, very fast, but lots of nice decisions. And it has you do have like two sides kind of fighting for different objectives, but there's a populace. It's like takes place in Afghanistan. But there's like a populace that gets represented on the board in a really interesting way. And I think that it's very cool. I think Brian Train made like a variant for it. Of course he did. And it has a option for being able to play as the populace, which is really intriguing, but I have not gotten to try yet. I don't know if anyone here has. I'd be very interested to hear how that plays.
Nice. All right. So I feel like, just to kind of sum up, Dan, you've been in the historical game space for a while. How do you think that 2023 has been a good year for the historicals?
I think it's been pretty good. I am always, it's weird how every year I think very highly of what's coming next year, and then the next year comes and then I'm still thinking highly of the next year. So I think I definitely feel spoiled right now to see games like Battle of Versailles coming out.
Oh, yeah.
For example, like, weren't we just talking about like a fashion game the last time we had our little board game stream?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm just getting everything I've ever wanted, basically, just by being alive and being in the hobby. It's pretty great. And I don't know. I think that it measured up as a pretty good year overall.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that. I feel like I played some really, really good games this year. Actually, in a way, I feel like this is the year I've just, even though not everything I played this year was from 2023, I feel like 2023 has just been a great year of gaming for me in general. And then a lot of the releases from this year I also really, really liked. Like, I'm feeling very positive about historical gaming at this particular moment in my gaming life. So I'm feeling optimistic for 2024 as well. I'm very excited about whatever's next, and I'm really happy with a lot of the play experiences I had this year.
Did you feel like the stream was too positive? Should we have dwelled instead on the 17 most disappointing historical games?
That's the next stream, everyone. Tune in again next week as we.
Liz is just kidding. We don't know when Fred's next stream is, so we don't have any idea when to plan it.
We'll have to figure out if we can get. He's got like a paper planner. I know this. We'll have to send someone to infiltrate. The moment he announces his next stream, let's just plan worst games. We won't even talk about that, but people will show up because worst games is clickbait, so it'll just happen.
Yeah,
like the biggest, most disappointed audience ever, which is what you deserve. That's what you.
It's one thing to throw sand in people's face, but it's another thing to tell them that that's what they deserve.
And now you know why I don't play multiplayer games very often. Oh man. So on that note, I suppose we'll draw this stream to a close, but we should definitely do something again soon.
Absolutely.
We'll have to decide how.
Just, without these jokers heckling us or anything like that, we could just play votes for women when I'm supposed to be working or something.
Yeah, we could do that. Oh man. So everybody who was here, thank you so much for being here. It's so nice to have like a little afternoon stream. I really appreciate it. Dan, thank you as always for coming on. This is always a blast. And happy gaming, everybody.
Thanks for having me, Liz. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.